¿Nadie? Bueno, muchísimas gracias por esta oportunidad de estar aquí. Es un orgullo y también lo considero un reconocimiento porque vengo del sector indígena. Les he dado un saludo en la lengua de los incas, que es el quechua, simplemente, y para comprobar que muchas veces creemos que todos nos entienden, pero no nos entendemos muchas veces, y ese es el problema en el mundo, ¿no es cierto? Entonces, no quisiera hablar en nombre de la sociedad civil en su conjunto, porque la misma sociedad civil, ustedes saben, somos una gran diversidad, con sectores, intereses y depende del escenario en el que nos encontremos. También la sociedad civil son los empresarios para mí, ¿no? Yo quisiera más bien hablar como mujer, como indígena, como mujer, y que en las Américas somos más o menos entre 45 y 50 millones. Y si hablamos de los pueblos indígenas o los pueblos originarios, también tendríamos que ubicarnos en ese contexto. ¿Dónde estamos los pueblos indígenas, las mujeres indígenas, la niñez indígena, la juventud indígena? Si nos ubicamos en un escenario rural, ¿no? Seguramente si relacionamos ese escenario con las oportunidades que nos han mostrado de la economía verde, veremos que estamos hablando del uso de los recursos que esos pueblos han cuidado durante miles de años, ¿no? Pero que le estamos dando una oportunidad económica para desarrollar, sí, generar economía y mejores condiciones de vida, más bien material, como nos ha explicado el doctor Cletus y el doctor que no voy a decir su nombre, Juan Carlos. Entonces, ese es el escenario rural, donde estamos todavía en la gran mayoría en condiciones, en la mayoría de países, en condiciones donde no se tiene acceso en igualdad de condiciones a la sociedad en general. Y la principal barrera creo que tiene que ver con la educación. Y la educación, una educación de calidad que nos dé oportunidad como a cualquier otro. Y por lo tanto también, si relacionamos con la oportunidad de la economía verde, es como una joven de este tiempo que se educa en una provincia andina de cualquier parte de los países del sur, podría, por ejemplo, desarrollar oportunidad profesional, oportunidad ocupacional y oportunidad de desarrollo económico sostenible con la concepción que hemos manejado los pueblos indígenas. ¿Qué significa? Ser parte del medio en el que hemos nacido, ser parte de ese entorno donde seres humanos y naturaleza se consideran uno. Y por considerarse uno, se ejerce un mutuo servicio. ¿Qué quiere decir? Que si yo necesito el pasto, tenía los camélidos que comían el pasto, cortando el pasto, podando, no jalando y depredando el pasto. Pero cambiamos esto por animales que sí jalan el pasto y la depredan. Entonces, ahí hay un cambio y tiene que ver con la concepción cultural en el que nos desenvolvemos en los medios. Entonces, yo creo que esa es una de las principales diferencias en relación al fomento de la economía verde y las oportunidades, por ejemplo, de crecimiento económico, la lucha contra la pobreza y la generación de empleo. Que los pueblos indígenas nos encontramos con muchas todavía brechas muy visibles y difíciles de superarla, que tiene que ver con la educación y con la concepción del uso de los recursos para ello. Si seguimos hablando de este espacio rural, tenemos el otro problema. Sí, hay una oportunidad de generar, por ejemplo, productos para el biocombustible, se dice, ¿no? Combustible, digamos, más ecológico, estamos pensando dónde vamos a sembrar, en qué tierras vamos a sembrar y qué recursos vamos a usar para ello. ¿Qué quiere decir? Quiero relacionar solo la canola o la caña de azúcar. Entonces, si bien el Estado dice vamos a promover el consumo de biocombustible en relación al petróleo o el gas, entonces se fomenta las grandes inversiones para estos cultivos. ¿Qué depreda? El tema del agua se convierte en un problema porque no tenemos, ese recurso natural no es renovable ni aparece por arte de magia, porque habría mayor consumo de agua. Luego también desaparecerían, por ejemplo, del mercado la producción de alimentos sanos, porque se fomentaría el monocultivo.
Food staples would disappear from the market because there would be a promotion of monocrop, single crops. Then if we talk about the goals for the millennium,
el tema de dónde se concentran, por ejemplo, esas oportunidades serían los que tienen las grandes extensiones de tierras.
Would those opportunities concentrate?
Cuando hablamos, por ejemplo, de la energía también
own large tracts of land.
Eólica, ¿no?
When we're
y
talking
las
about,
hidroeléctricas.
for example, energy, wind energy, hydro energy. We have issues with all of those
la
things.
Sociedad civil
So,
que está
civil society
luchando por derechos, no solo nuestros de las personas, sino el derecho a que las nuevas generaciones sigan contando con estos recursos, si son críticos de las oportunidades de la economía verde. ¿Por qué? Porque desde un lado, como lo hemos visto perfectamente en los expositores anteriores, vemos una gran oportunidad, pero seguramente que vemos una oportunidad para un determinado sector y sobre una determinada posibilidad. Pero si estas propuestas van a atentar con el empobrecimiento de la tierra, con la desaparición de recursos no renovables, va a encarecer los productos, o sea, los alimentos en el mercado para la gran población. No sé si estamos resolviendo el asunto, ¿no? Entonces, siendo indígenas del área rural, nos encontramos con estos problemas.
In those rural areas, those are the problems we confront.
Y vemos el gran fomento, por ejemplo, del cultivo de la canola,
how
donde el gobierno tiene que responder, por ejemplo, a campesinos que no tienen tierra, a movimientos sin tierra que quieren tierra,
has to face also movements from people who don't own the land and who are claiming the land, peasants who want to improve their economic situation. So the government
se piensa, por ejemplo, en el uso del agua, del río y de los territorios y los recursos naturales para todo tipo de explotación de recursos para generar economía. Puede tener una etiqueta verde,
for everything that can generate an economy. It may have
etiqueta roja, felizmente.
Many other cases it's had a red label.
Fortunately, el sector empresarial está tomando conciencia sobre el peligro que hay de seguir
is becoming aware of the danger
economía con etiqueta roja como nos ha demostrado el impacto del cambio climático, porque todo esto es también consecuencia de un proceso de no tomar en cuenta que hay recursos con el que no tenemos derecho ninguna persona, venga de donde venga, de expoliarla o de exterminarlarla, porque tenemos una responsabilidad con la vida humana y con las futuras generaciones. Entonces, ahí es donde vemos conflictos y vemos conflictos que ahora se nos presenta como el sector que los pueblos indígenas o las comunidades que nos oponemos, por ejemplo, a la explotación irracional de la minería, del petróleo, de los árboles, el uso del agua, el abrir una gigante carretera transnacional.
We're opposed to opening a gigantic transnational highway And we're asked, are you being positive or are you against development? But maybe what's not happening is that there's no mutual understanding between the parties. And we cannot develop programs that involve participation, that involve dialogue, and that result in mutual benefits. Think only in 5-year terms because of our government terms, and there's a lot of politics, and the governments think that they're going to earn votes or that they're going to generate this economic growth. I come from Peru as a country that is showing great economic growth. However, if we look in depth, and if we look, for example, at the market for healthy foods, that the indigenous peoples have inherited a culture of production, a culture for the use of resources, that could last for about 7 years, like, for example, the Inca technology for the conservation and preservation of food. We still have the state of economic growth based on that fact that we have that diversity, the diversity of plants and food staples that we have in the Andean region and in the Amazon. Now, if we want to promote the economy, to grow the economic policy of states is based practically on the exploitation of these resources. So the indigenous peoples are asking to be involved in the design of these, have been able to do this, to achieve this. Peoples, the World Labor Organization also has and that has the weight of law, and states should respect that. Finding that right to the free determination, to the free will to decide where we live and what we eat, by our informed consent on issues that have to do with our lives, has to do with the use of our resources and the territories where we're located. And
estos dos instrumentos internacionales para nosotros son indivisibles en relación a los derechos individuales y colectivos. O sea, los derechos individuales como pueblos que también tienen un derecho de ser reconocidos en sus aportes para la humanidad y como personas, como ciudadanas, como personas individuales también a ser respetados en aquello como cualquier otra persona. Entonces, nosotros más bien vemos como un gran potencial que tendríamos los pueblos indígenas para justamente garantizar la sostenibilidad de la vida. Pero esto demanda, tenemos que ir cambiando un poquito. Yo siempre digo, el que gana 500%, ¿por qué no piensa que puede ganar el 100%? Y no depredarlo todo tan rápido. Porque también cuando hablamos de economía nos vemos discutiendo entre nosotros los pueblos indígenas qué significa el desarrollo económico.
When we talk about the economy, even us, the indigenous peoples, argue amongst ourselves about what economic growth means. And again, we're not against economic development. We're not against having better material conditions, but we also care about spiritual life.
Ser respetados, ser reconocidos y que la calidad de la salud y la educación y los derechos ciudadanos también nos lleve bien y podamos participar de la vida política, social, económica y cultural en nuestros países. Ya los pueblos indígenas no estamos pensando en que vamos a vivir en guetos, porque también el mundo es dinámico y también nosotros como pueblos vamos también, sí, pues como le llaman los
also, as the Italians say, we're having this
lo bueno y lo válido del desarrollo científico y tecnológico, pero que esto
we have to take advantage of technological and scientific improvements, but this needs to contribute to a life that's sustainable in every aspect. So, when we are exploiting mines responsible way, when they say that, we would like to know what does this mean, the rational exploitation of mines, when in practice we're seeing the waste from this mining harming women, resulting in genital problems, when the rivers in the Amazon are being contaminated, when there's no more fish, trees are being taken down, when the animals in the jungle disappear,
alimentos transgénicos,
entonces, our own animals are being fed transgenic food. Like they say, you know, now chicken have 4 breasts instead of just a normal one. So there's all this change, and that has an impact on people's health. So the indigenous peoples, we would simply like to see if, as the paper says, Cletus,
el papel, como decía mi padre, aguanta todo.
Paper, anything can be put on paper, as my dad said, but what is lacking is and the commitment and the political will, political decision of the authorities in our countries. We become very concerned when, for example, in Peru,
los recursos que los pueblos indígenas y culturas indígenas hemos conservado,
the indigenous peoples are being sold to generate income, whether by tourism or the exploitation of resources.
¿Cuáles son las condiciones
what are the
que
conditions that the government, that the Peruvian state imposes on foreign investors so that they don't damage the resources, they don't deplete, they don't harm human life? Just like they wouldn't be allowed to do that in their own countries. That's all we're asking for. So that decisions have to be taken with responsibility and with respect for the people to which the people in government must respond. And that implies legislating and making decisions after putting all the cards on the table. And I believe that if there are international companies,
desarrollando su economía,
they need to keep improving their economy
de la inversión en otros
through
países,
the investment in other
y estos
countries.
países le ponen condiciones
But
razonables
these countries
para
have
que
to
no
impose
sigamos contaminando
reasonable
el
conditions
mundo,
so
ni
that we don't
vayamos
continue
depredando, ni vayamos creciendo aceleradamente y luego tenemos
or growing
en el
in an
organismo.
accelerated way, and then we'll all end up with bodies. We see that in China, for example, according to your chart, China is an example to be followed, but
¿Y qué está pasando
what's happening with all of the economic power? What's happening in the rest of the world due to development in China? Frankly, they broke the textile industry in Peru. Now everything is plastic there. And they also don't want to assume the responsibility of not polluting by investing in cleaner industries. So development has to be undertaken responsibly. What cost are we developing economically? And what does this mean in relation to the resources that should last for mankind? So we have to have this very clear. Non-renewable resources, I don't know. We will be able to just live on pills one day. I don't believe so. But we have to be consistent with the policies at the global level relating
la
to
salud de la tierra y la naturaleza para que sigamos produciendo
that
alimentos
means
sanos para el mundo.
cleaning the earth and respecting the earth so that we can continue producing healthy food for the world. Maybe we do not need to change our cars every year. Maybe we can use public transportation, have better public transportation that does not pollute. And we need to think that maybe the external signs of wealth don't necessarily mean well-being.
Okay, I think we only have 5 minutes for questions, so depending on how many questions we have, we might have to group them. And please indicate who your question's for.
Sorry? I think a little bit for the three of you. Thank you very much. This is a kind of different question. It's not going to be technical or based in economic data. I'm just curious because we are all working the green topic daily. Do you really think we're going to solve this? Do you honestly think we as humans are going to get into the point in which we reach a balanced, fair relation with ourselves and with the planet, or do you think we are basically taking advantage of the moment to gain interesting business models for the next 20 years? Do you know what I mean? Because, yeah, you think about it from time to time when you are seeing what's happening outside, and, yeah, I'm just curious on that topic.
Do you want to go first? Well, fascinating question. Of course, I think that we can improve the way we live and behave. Otherwise, I wouldn't be working on this. Do I think that we are going to solve definitely everything and that we are going to have bliss on earth in the near future? Of course not. But I definitely think that we can improve the way we live, that we can improve it for, and we should improve it for everybody. And there are plenty of indicators that show that it can be done. Tarsila was talking about China. China, of course, is no model of environmental behavior, but the fact is that almost 200 million people have come out of poverty in 20 years. 200 million. Of course, it's 800 million too few in the case of China. But it has been in 10, 20 years. And I'm sure that with more resource efficiency, taking into consideration the impact that they produce on the environment, they can take out of poverty a similar number in 20 years and without the very high environmental costs. I mean, that's why we study. I mean, we know the science, we know the public policy, we know the political obstacles, we know the cultural obstacles, and they are huge. Of course they are huge. But I think that humans are clever enough to come up with solutions to these problems. But I'm not naive. Of course, we're not going to see a definite solution. But take any, I don't know if you're familiar with the Club of Rome, but I'm willing to take a bet on how many people are going to come out of poverty in the next 20 years. If you think that there, as a percentage of human population, there are going to be more poor people in 20 years, we can make a bet, substantial bet. Not like Mitt Romney, but substantial enough. And I'm an optimistic. I'm optimistic, sure. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so am I. I'm optimistic as well. Back in 1990, in March 1990, when I visited Mexico City, it was so polluted that I couldn't breathe. I came away with an inflammation of the optic nerve from breathing in the particulate matter, and so on. When I went back there 2 years ago, it had dramatically improved. This time, 10 years ago, airlines were not talking about using biofuels as an alternative to jet fuel for flying. Now we are almost at the doorstep of that invention. Virgin Airlines is taking the lead on this. 10 years ago, Marks and Spencer's was not saving 80% or reducing its waste by 80%. Or Walmart wasn't doing the same thing. So obviously you need a critical mass for there to be substantial and sustained change. But I think we're on the road to getting there.
Tarsila, ¿quieres comentar algo?
Bueno, yo también soy una esperanzada.
I'm also hopeful, otherwise I would not be here. And yes, because we also believe in the new generations. People will come up that will be more critical about the way the world is developing. And as part of the indigenous sector, I have to say, it's taken us 23 years to come up with a declaration of the rights of the indigenous people at the UN. For 10 years, we worked to find a space where indigenous people can go year after year now to New York and talk about our issues. And this also means that many times the obstacles are like within our own countries. Because for me, for instance, it's a lot harder to talk to somebody, intellectual middle-class person in my own country. It's a lot harder for me to talk to them than to be invited here. And you can see that. And you see, because unfortunately, we're always talking about the differences. And we're not talking about the affinities we have, what we have in common. So there is a lot of colonialism, there is a lot of racism, there is a lot of discrimination in our countries, and that is a huge obstacle because resources are not distributed. They're not the same. I mean, I'm not going to give anything to the other because they're not as much, you know, they are not valued as much as I am. So these are our countries still have some, you know, colonial influences left. That doesn't mean that when we get to power, you know, it would be the opposite. I think we have to grow ourselves as well. And on the other hand, I think that these discussions generate a critical mass or a critical attitude so that governments that didn't used to see can, in a way, start changing. And I think the same thing has to happen with the people that make the money. We have to keep insisting. We have to keep talking about the social responsibility. And, you know, for instance, I come from a sector where they consider us in extreme poverty. I'm totally against donations and gifts because they paralyze us. We believe in investment for training and development, to learn about the new needs and to be able to contribute to the development of our country. I'm really not for policies, structural policies that you can overcome one certain situation only. I think it has to do with sustainability. I think at the time when we can really talk about sustainability, when we can have a vision about sustainability, once we do something, this something is going to guarantee that we can eat and sleep and live well into the future. And this is not going to be directed at just particular interest or something specific.
I'm not as optimistic about the future in the short and immediate term, or the immediate term, I guess, because the logic of the world economy today is all about growth. when we reach zero growth in this country, for example, the United States or any other country, that is not acceptable. The whole economic system is geared on more and more and greater consumption and deeper consumption and more of everything. And I'm not sure that that is sustainable without challenging the fundamentals of capitalism itself. I'm not sure that I'm that optimistic. I think there is a fundamental tension in the way we deal with the world economy today and what we're trying to accomplish when we talk about environmental degradation and the protection of the environment.
Yeah, you're right, but that's changing. You look at the OECD countries, for example, where there's a stronger emphasis now on welfare. The Nordic countries, for example, clearly place a higher premium on quality of life and so on and economic growth. I mean, obviously, you need some measure of wealth creation to pay for the welfare gains. It cannot also only be through taxes and so on. But you're right, the tensions are there. And not only that, the inequalities, the inequities, the playing field is not level. We see regression on a number of environmental agreements, for example, Kyoto and so on. I was at a conference at New York University last year on climate change when I was appalled to hear professors and so on advocate kicking the can down the road, because it will be the future will be better able to pay for the cost of restoration. Just the reverse of the argument we've been making, that we cannot burden future generations with that. They came at it in the other way and said, listen, it will be cheaper to do it in the long term. So you have these tensions, as you say, that exist. But what we need to, and we're getting there. I mean, I'm not sure though, I think we would have made a lot more progress if we were not too UN-centric in the approach that we have taken over these last 20 years. All of the thinking has come out of the UN system, which is not, as you know, the best place for thinking sometimes. But when I look at what the private sector has achieved, the global private sector over the last 20 years is phenomenal.
I think it depends on whether or not the society is able to become more efficient in the use of resources, promote more resilient ways of production and consumption. And growth doesn't necessarily mean material growth. I mean, I hope you are enjoying this. And we are creating welfare by learning now.
That's right.
And I think that in the future, people will learn to, and of course the productive sector will respond to that, to enjoy things that are not necessarily, that use more materials. No, look at the way in which developed countries have changed their productive sectors. I mean, the service industry is now just as important and more important in many countries, and that's the way it's going to be. We are going to use, hopefully, resources in a much more efficient way, and most people will enjoy and be involved in non-materialistic activities. Of course that the world cannot sustain, I say this well, a million cities like a big American city. No? I mean, there is no steel, there are no resources for that. But we're going to, I mean, resources as they grow scarcer are going to become more expensive, and then that will create the incentives. When gasoline gets expensive, the auto industry responds. Why are cars the way they are in Italy and why are cars the way they are in the US? Yeah. Because Italians like mini Fiat? Yeah. No, of course not. because gasoline is 10 times more expensive in Italy than in the US. Mm-hmm. So I'm again optimistic, not very optimistic, but optimistic. People will learn to find ways out of this, and let's hope that we don't have to see the wolf in their eyes, in his eyes, to change our ways, and that our leaders and we are far-sighted enough to promote these changes. But I'm sure that we can sustain 7 billion, 8 billion, 9 billion if we become more resource efficient. We'll have the adequate policies, and we focus on education, on personal relations. I mean, how many people are now doing a living out of coaching people how to behave and how to be nice and how to lose weight? And, I mean, the economy is changing, and it will keep changing.
Tarsila, I don't know if you want, si quieres hacer un comentario final, porque ya tenemos que...
Sí. Capitalismo.
Well, capitalism is capitalism. We can paint it green, but it's still capitalism. And I think we have to look at a cultural change, because if things keep going the way they are, it's because there's people still consuming the way they are. So we have to change many things. We have to change attitudes that are part of people's culture, and that has to be changed. In that regard, I just wanted to mention that once I went to Finland, and I was very surprised when I saw the water pipes, the ones that go to the shower, and they're outside the walls. They're not inside the walls like they're in our house. I touched it and it was warm, and I said, why? Why do you have these exposed pipelines? And they said to me, well, they recycle the water, the water that you use in your sink. They recycle this water for the whole house, and that recycled water is what warms up the rest of the house. It heats the house. And I said, well, how come you don't teach us the same thing? Because then I discovered all the water that we use in our house, it ends up going to the sea, to the ocean, and all the water that goes to the ocean, the fish end up eating all the waste that we send from our houses, from our homes. So if I hadn't seen it, I wouldn't have known they do that. So I think technology and investment and this exchange of knowledge and experience has to lead us to new situations where we can enjoy life. And it should be something different, not washing your towels every day or throwing your wastewater into the ocean, and then you are left with no fish to eat. So I think culture has to change. And some aspects of these indigenous cultures, people look at them as behind or old. And when we look today, we see they're not, we're not in the past. We, due to different circumstances, since the state has forgotten to design policies for us, they did not include us in the policies, so that isolation has really been an opportunity to keep being ourselves. And now when we look outside and when we look inside, we see we do have many things to share, and for that we would have to have an equal relationship. And the other culture that used to see us as something that was negative, they would have to change so we can establish this dynamic of mutual learning for mutual benefit.
We don't have time for more questions, but please help me in thanking our very insightful and inspiring panelists today. Thank you very much.